Not a day goes by without a siren screaming by my window, even though I'm on the 6th floor. Apparently it's audible in the videos, and one just passed by 5 minutes ago, but if another one passes by while this video is going on, then my apologies. Anyway, the other day I wanted to have some good Pokemon battles, so I asked my friend and one of the greatest players of all time, Mcmeghan, if he wanted to play some games just for fun, and he accepted. So I did this on stream the other day, so thank you to everyone who came out and made it a good time and even donated toward that Pokemon Coliseum movie. Quick plugs so I can get them out of the way. I have a Discord. It's a great place to hang out, and I'm teasing images from the Pokemon Coliseum movie. It's going to be awesome. I have a Patreon if you want to part with your hard-earned money to give it to me. Some people do. God bless them. And finally, I learned this trick from Joey the other day. If you watch my videos and haven't subscribed, then please subscribe. I'm desperate. Okay, so that's out of the way. So the format that this will take place in is best of 3 throughout gens 1 through 5. So it's a best of 5, but with each individual generation being best of 3. And since it's for fun and I made new teams for this, then I was like, you want to do best of 3 no matter the score? Or rather 3 games no matter the score, so even if you win the first 2 of a best of 3, we play the third anyway. And he was like, yeah, sure. So we had 15 battles, and they were a blast. So the only other restrictions were, we want it to be serious. We don't want to just goof around with Specs, Gyarados, and other dumb stuff. But at the same time, we don't want to play too seriously. There was an unspoken agreement, don't bring stall. Who's having fun there? So, yeah. I made new teams. I think he just used fun stuff he already had. So, let's get into it. And yeah, so, first game is RBY, and I'm using a Gengar. And I have to run from Starmie because Psychic and Hypnosis accuracy is bad, and Starmie has a high crit rate, so not worth it, and I go to Chansey. So, heads up about this team, it is not the most competitive because I wanted to use Gengar. Well, I wanted to use Clefable, and then I was like, well, I could also use Gengar because Gengar is Clefable's shadow. So, it's not the most competitively minded team. One gimmicky-ish Pokemon per team is generally a good rule of thumb for a team that's trying to try out something offbeat but is still trying to remain competitive. Anyway, so I'm forced to go to Chansey, and I go for a Sing because he makes a great move and goes to Exeggutor, trying to catch me on Soft Boiled to get the first sleep, because that's a lot of what RBY is about, fighting for the sleep, especially the first one. And unfortunately, I miss my chance because Sing has bad accuracy. So I'm forced to go to my Sleep Absorber, which is Starmie, and I'll still have Gengar to dish out a sleep myself. So now I just gotta burn sleep turns. And sleep is pretty much a KO in RBY unless you get very unlucky, which is kind of lame. So I make a risky move and go to Gengar on Double Edge because I can't just let him kill Starmie. I was really afraid he was going to Psychic, but yeah. And now I have to take the horrible risk of Hypnosis. And the point of Gengar, well, as a lead, you want to get the jump on Jinx. And Exeggutor lead, of course. But mid-game, you try to switch it into Snorlax that doesn't have Earthquake, which is a pretty good chunk of them. So yeah, I have Gengar and Clefable because they're shadows, and I named them after 2 80s sci-fi movies that I saw for the first time recently and very much enjoyed. So Hypnosis misses, because of course it does, and his Psychic doesn't miss and does 69%, so I have mixed feelings there. So hit Hypnosis, wake up. Hit Hypnosis again, wake up again. And then I hit a third Hypnosis. Alright, language warning. While I was on stream, then it got pretty heated because Mcmeghan was getting some good luck, and I let loose. So if I do that in this video, you have been warned. Anyway, I go for a Nightshade because I don't explode because I'm stupid, mainly. And whenever I don't play RBY for a while, like when I've been playing it, then I'm pretty good. Not great, I think. Maybe I have my days, but overall I'm pretty good. But when I haven't played it for a while, then this stuff starts to happen and it gets pretty bad. And I don't think I really hit my stride until like halfway through the second game. But yeah, that was really stupid of me. And now I just have to go to Chansey and force some freezes. But that doesn't happen because... Oh, and then I soft-boiled like a dumbass. And I tried to Ice Beam there, as the stream will attest to. And then I wanted to counter his Hyper Beam. Well, no, I wanted to just switch an encounter. And he ended up Hyper Beaming, and I was like, yes, I'm going to counter this for a gajillion%. And instead he misses and gets to Body Slam. So just everything going his way now. And here it's interesting because he can Earthquake, but that would mean that if he self-destructs into my Gengar, that's obviously bad. If he Earthquakes into my Snorlax, that's not as bad, assuming he wins the speed tie. And he could also switch out into his own Gengar, which I was not expecting. So I decided, I think he's going to try to catch my Gar. I'm just going to go for the speed tie. I'm behind. I have to make risky moves anyway. Although, in theory, no, I remember now. So I wanted to go to... I thought he would Earthquake expecting my Gengar, because even if I lose Gengar, I can follow it up with Tauros after. And that was why I was more confident he would EQ. But he just switches to Gengar, which will not 2-KO me with T-Bolt. So now we're... And I do have Earthquake, which I don't think he was expecting, thanks to counter, because generally... I don't know if I can make this statement with too much confidence, but B-Slam, counter, Hyper Beam, Self-Destruct is a pretty good set. And so we both have the same idea with Gengar, except his is mid. So now it's all down to... We're just repeating the last turn. Is he going to explode into my Gengar? And I think I went to my Gengar because I figured even if he T-Bolts, he needs a crit to KO, and then I can just outspeed, hopefully win the speed tie and Nightshade him, because his Gengar is in Nightshade range. So instead he goes to Starmie, and I think on the stream I even said I think he's going to go to Starmie because it's safe, because it covers both Gengar and Earthquake, and I just did not pull the trigger of Self-Destruct. Not doing what I needed to do, for sure. So now I'm going back to Chansey, and this Starmie is just a mother. And I thought he was going to... I decided, foolishly, to make a risky move and said, oh, well, I'm -1. He can go to Snorlax for free now, but he decided just staying with Starmie, and I get my Tauros Psychic instead. So, really not a good start. So, then some stuff happens quickly. And he goes to Gengar on my Chansey. I have to assume that he was expecting this. And then he doubles back to Starmie on my Gengar. So that was a great series of switches by him. I decide, alright, I'll get Clefable in there. And he gets crit dropped and then crit again. So no chance there. So not that this game was already super gone. I just have to go for freezes. And yeah, Para. And that's just... He wins the at that point it was over anyway, so 6-0 in RBY is never a good look. So not a great start. So hopefully I can bring it back. Whoops. Yeah, so now we have an Exeggutor standoff. He takes about 90 seconds to decide, yeah, I'm going to go for the speed tie. That's the best path. So I win the tie, miss the sleep powder, so... So at least I wake up, and then I decide to play around this Cloyster like a goddamn idiot. I T-Wave his Exeggutor with my Jolteon and ruin my own chances for sleep, so I was just not thinking at all. Not that this team is very well made, because it doesn't have a plan for other Eggy at all. I just wanted to use 2 electrics, because spoiler, there are 2 electrics. So yeah, I'm playing around this like an idiot, and I kind of even deserved that crit. No, I don't know if I deserved it, but because it really hurt taking double Blizzard damage for later on, but whatever. So now I have to Blizzard and pivot on Clamp, and then I realized that was fucking dumb because I can't move, so I had to go to Zapdos in the first place. So at least now I'm thinking, alright, this is good, because Snorlax into Zapdos, that's great. Thunderbolt hits it really fucking hard. I have a good crit rate, and that will help Tauros later. Jolteon can threaten out that, and Cloyster, and maybe we can get something going. So T-Bolt, and not only do I not crit, he crits and paras, at which point I had to say fuck you, because that was just so stupid. Of course, he knew it, and luckily there's nothing at stake, not even ladder points, so it is more comical than anything. And then, just to tease me, then I get to sing through the para. So Pokemon really is cruel sometimes. Anyway, then he goes to Snorlax, and I go to Jolteon, and I just go for a crit, and nothing. And I'm just really flailing at this point. And I should have just self-destructed right away. I don't know why I was going for paras, and I dodge a clamp, so yay. Oh, and he goes to Articuno, which is funny because my third team also had Articuno with that exact nickname because I knew he liked to use it. And then with Articuno and Zapdos, then it's clear he's using the Troller team. Anyway, so he just blows up my Sleeping Egg, which is nice. Maybe he was expecting a pivot, but if he just wanted to get it out of the way, that's fine. So now it's still not as hopeless as you might think, because I luckily managed to get a first crit in the Tauros War, so now I'm slightly favored. And so he's going to sack his Zapdos, and it's pretty much Chansey and Zapdos and Snorlax, not the most outlandish scenario for Tauros to win in, because it's a simple Hyper Beam crit away. Actually, I forget the Tauros Hyper Beam calc versus Snorlax, which is further proof that I'm not a real RB-wire. Oh, it's always in Hyper Beam range. Jesus Christ. Well, so it was even better than I realized at the time, but I remember thinking, yeah, that's not bad. So that T-Bolt with Jolteon ended up being fairly worth it. So he's sleeping, and thanks to RBY para mechanics, then I can agility and outspeed the Articuno and Tauros. So he goes to Snorlax, smart move, avoids a crit, and just blows me up. So now it's Chansey, Tauros versus these guys, and I go, well, Chansey is good because Zapdos is asleep, and I have to use it to beat Articuno, and Tauros is at 18%. So his Articuno's Blizzard is the strongest special move in Gen 1, even stronger than Mewtwo's Psychic, and Hyper Beam luckily does not take me out. So, I mean, my only move, because my last move is counter, my best move is Ice Beam, but as long as he's not Rest, then that's still fine. So I'm going to be taking him out, and so he gets the para, and now he goes to this, and I completely blanked here. And I did not think, well, I guess it still wasn't a wrong move, but if he Hyper Beams Chansey, then Articuno can finish me off, so I was thinking Soft Boiled. But if I Soft Boil on Body Slam, that doesn't get me too far, and, So instead I just Ice Beam and finish him off, but it's still not over, because if Tauros switches in on a Hyper Beam aimed at Chansey, then he can Body Slam and Hyper Beam and kill the Articuno, and then I almost certainly win. But if he just Hyper Beams my Chansey, then he will. Then I need a Hyper Beam crit with Tauros. Now, most people would say this is a 50-50, but I don't believe so, because there's more factors into the decision rather than literal coin flip. Sometimes you can think about accuracy, like worst case I'll just play it for accuracy. Although you can't do that all the time. Like let's say if you're predicting between Stone Edge and Earthquake, and you say, well, I'm going to predict him to use Earthquake because if he uses Stone Edge, he might miss anyway, then that just means the other guy clicks Stone Edge every time. So you can't do that. But sometimes it's nice to keep in mind, especially with the lower accuracy move, like if you're, predicting Hypnosis or something. So, or Focus Blast, God forbid. Anyway, so here's why it's not a pure 50-50. Because, first of all, even if he Hyper Beams my Chansey and hits and, then I can still win because Tauros' Hyper Beam crit is roughly a 20% chance. So, that's not bad odds at all. Not to mention, well, if he has Ice Beam, then he's going to finish me off anyway, I think. We can even check that just in the interest of, this reminds me of the battling guide I want to make. Yeah, Ice Beam, which, no, not Double Edge, Ice Beam. Okay, it had a good chance to kill, so maybe he goes for that. But anyway, point being that I still had a good chance. Plus, even if, think about it like this, even if he blizzards and I stay in, he's still threatening me. It's not like it's a 4 game. So that was more reason for him to blizzard, because he catches the Tauros, and even if I stay in, I can full para, he can crit, and even if I get the Soft Boiled off, I'm still, he's still, the Chansey is not out of the woods. So that was more reason for him to blizzard. Now you could say, well, that's why he could Hyper Beam, making it a 50-50, but I don't believe so. I think obviously it's not an exact science, but I believe strongly in what I just said, so I should have stayed in, and I didn't because I wasn't thinking very much, and I overthought it a little, or underthought rather, and just get Tauros killed and Hyper Beam, but very heads-up move by Mcmeghan to Blizzard, which was 100% the right play, I believe, even if Chansey stayed in. So, off to an 0-2 start, and, some ugly luck has marred both games, but, I'm confident I'll get him back. So, Game 3 of RBY, the final game. I'm leading with Jinx, named after an awesome, awesome piece of cinematic achievement, Batman and Robin from 1997, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, and the Iceman cometh indeed, as I get the perfect lead matchup, Jinx versus Exeggutor. This is what you dream of to start every RBY game. So just going for the lovely kiss. He switches Dragonite in, and I'm like, uh-oh, rap. That ain't fun. So now I put Ice Beam over Blizzard on my Jinx because I want to freeze shit. Every single Pokemon on this team has an ice move. It is Jinx, Snorlax, Chansey, Tauros, Starmie, and Articuno. So someone's getting frozen. So Ice Beam and Crit Freeze, goodbye Chansey, get fucked. So I tell him to chill out, dickwad, which is another Arnold Schwarzenegger character from Terminator 2, which is Mcmeghan's favorite movie, Layers. Anyway, so I'm just going to spam Ice Beam, or maybe... No, I switched to Psychic here, and I end up hitting a fucking Tentacruel, which does not exist at all in RBY, but I think it's the fastest user of Rap, in the game, so, yeah, dick. So I'm very glad I crit him, and this Jinx is just on a roll as it dodges Rap and kills it, and now in comes Tauros. I'm like, fuck it, I'm just staying in. I'm gonna crit him with Ice Beam, hell yeah. And, I let it go because whatever. And I don't feel bad, not because of the first two games, but because he brought fucking Rap, and we're supposed to be playing for fun. So I Blizzard, and I'm like, alright, high crit rate, I'm definitely critting this one. And it's like, nope, I'm critting the next one. I was like, nope, it's fine because I'm dodging Sleep Powder, and I do dodge Sleep Powder, which is just wonderful. So I can't freeze again because of Freeze Claws, but at this point the game is super, super, super over. As now I just want to get the Snorlax into Articuno range. So, if he rests, then that's totally fine too. And I Blizzard, but he ends up... miss Blizzard, but he ends up booming. So now I go to my own Articuno, and I set up an Agility, so I outspeed the Tauros. And I'm not getting... There's the Sprite. And Blizzard dropped. Tauros dropped. Exeggutor dropped. And Articuno decides to get revenge. So awesome. We're off to an interesting, fun start. Obviously, this is not the pinnacle of competition, but, you gotta throw in some fun sometimes. Okay, let me try that again. You gotta throw in some fun sometimes, man, because otherwise you'll just get burned out and not have fun. Like, I'm all about, some people have fun by competing at the highest level. Yeah, totally. That was me for freaking 10 years. And now I'm just like, you know what, I gotta take it. I still love, building competitive-minded teams and, tackling the metagame, but just, you gotta take it easy sometimes. It's not healthy to be all guns blazing all the time. So, moving on to Gen 2. We have a Snorlax Mirror, and I'm running triple electric here. Why are my sprites taking forever to show up? Anyway, so since I have 3 electrics, then I have no patience for other Snorlax getting in the way, so I just explode. And good start. So now I have my Raikou in on Zapdos, and I have 2 Rest Talk electrics, Raikou and Zapdos, and then a Sub-Growth electric, Jolteon. So I figured he's pretty dire against electrics if he has to keep Zapdos in on Raikou like this. So getting Snorlax out of the way was definitely the right call. If he has to keep Zapdos in on Raikou, I think I said that. I might have said Snorlax. Anyway, he gets Golem in here, and I decide, you know what? The Cloyster/Fori, probably Cloyster switch is so obvious that, the double switch to Zapdos or his own Cloyster is even more obvious. So I'm going to Thunder again. And, he reads me. He makes a good move. He just Earthquake straight away. He got the feeling that I was up to some funny stuff. So, fair enough. He also could have expected me to be HP Water instead of HP Ice and said, you know what, I can't afford to not Earthquake this. So there's that. And then he switches on the next turn, and then I Thunder to the Zapdos. So he gives me a respectful middle finger, as he puts it. So that worked out nicely. Anyway, so Golem again, I'm just like, alright, he's going to Cloyster here, I'm doing it again, and, you know, that was foolish of me, because even if I go to my own Cloyster, and he goes to Cloyster, who cares? You know, so that was very short-sighted, and more, you know, I'm just having some fun, so, you know, the original idea was cool, but once I killed the Zapdos, then, you know, it was unnecessary. Hell, you could say it was unnecessary to begin with, because even if he doubles to Zapdos on my Cloyster, I can always just return to my Rest Talk Raikou and never give him the opportunity to spike first. Either we spike at the same time, or I spike first. There is no scenario within these Pokemon that have been revealed so far in which he spikes first. Not to mention, it's not even such a big deal if he does. Although I get my Jolteon in, and I went triple HP Ice, even thinking about Golem, and I was like, yeah. I eventually went with HP Ice on Jolteon because I wanted its subs to have the highest chance of living Zapdos and Raikou hits, and Gengar as well, because HP Water cuts into your HP too much. But I definitely should have considered it on Raikou or Zapdos. Probably Raikou more than Zapdos, because you need Zapdos's full bulk to handle Nidoking here. But yeah, so that one I don't regret. You know, tossing my Raikou out the window was fucking dumb, because he got way too much out of that, and now he reveals an Alakazam. I was afraid of Jinx, but, you know, same deal, because my last is also Golem. So throwing away Raikou was very foolish, and I get lucky with Thunder. I was going for the crit. I think I 2 a KO, and he doesn't KO me back, so I didn't even bother calcing at the time, but yeah, Thunder. So, yeah, that's a pretty good chance. Well, I mean, accuracy. There's accuracy, but there's also para, and, you know, from, let's say, 93.75, so very, very high chance to 2 a KO, you know, and he's not 2 a KOing me back, as you can see here, so, my dimensions aren't perfect for this. Well, this calc I'm showing you now is Jolteon's Thunder, so from 93%. I know it's a little higher, it's 93.75 after spikes and lefties, but yeah. So now there's Gengar, and, you know, I have sub. So I just set up all over it, and for good measure, I crit him again. So the tables have turned, luck-wise. And yeah, so sorry about that one. So now I'm using a team with 3 belly drummers: Snorlax, Quagsire, and Clefable. Because I want to use Clefable in the gens where it doesn't get used. Although, spoiler, I don't use it in Gen 3 because it doesn't even have a ghost of a chance in OU there. So I just go for some hidden power as this is a Rest Talk HPI Zapdos, so that's why it switched into Exeggutor. So now HP Ice again, Steelix Curses, and I'm like, alright, well, if he's expecting Cloyster, then he can probably just boom for free, right? And switching Gengar into Steelix is still a very risky move. But I have Fori on this team, named after the German version of Fori. So yeah, I gotta get out of there, but I got Steelix for the cost of half my HP. So now I absorb the sleep, and I go to Liz Lemon, who is unfortunately a male in GSC because female Pokemon have lower attack DVs. Anyway, so I go for Pursuit because I was expecting Psychic, because he also had HP, and the only person I know who runs Hidden Power, Fire, and Giga Drain Egg was me, and then Conflict a couple months ago. But I made a big deal about it when I first started using it, but no one else seemed to catch on, so I'm glad someone appreciates it. Anyway, it is imperative that Exeggutor gets removed for this team, which is why it was dumb for me to risk it in the first place, because I know these games are, you know, fun messing around, but there's also a lot to learn from them if you're a newer player. So the reason this was so dumb was because I didn't have to assume he didn't have Giga Drain. I could have just pursued it. Because if he switches out because he really is that helpless against Tyranitar, then I'm just going to pursue him again later. But if he is Giga Drain, he's going to stay in, so I should have crunched first. So if that makes sense, then great. If it doesn't, then please let me know, and I'll try to explain it further in the comments. If you have any questions on anything, then I'm happy to explain in the comments. because, you know, education is important, and that's what we do here. Anyway, so now I have to make the choice. Now I make a smarter move and go for Crunch, because there's no sense in potentially just letting my Tyranitar die to not even kill the Exeggutor. So Crunch here was good, and that was why he made the smart move and switched out to Cloyster. Now, since my Zapdos is sleeping and my Fori, which has Giga Drain, is at half health, and I'm actually not very good against Cloyster at all, so I have very little choice but to just try and Crunch on the Spike. He goes for Icy Wind, trying to scare my Zapdos switch in, so that worked. And he had no lefties, which meant he was Miracle Berry, which is the GSC equivalent of Lumberry, and is pretty awesome on Cloyster. I'm a big fan of it. For faster paced teams, it shrugs off Paralysis from Body Slam and Sleep, so really nice. And Toxic, of course, although that one's not as important. Anyway, he goes to Gengar and uses fucking HP Grass, which is annoying because I was expecting T-Ball Ice Punch. And HP Grass Gengar is good for anyone who's watched me ladder. Then you know I like HP Water because it smacks Golem and Steelix. And HP Grass is not going to hit Steelix, but it hits Golem while also actually hitting Cloyster. Hits Golem and T-Tar, of course, and hits Cloyster, so you're not boned by the fact you don't have T-Bolt. And you know, once you cut into Gengar's bulk with HP Water, then the drop to HP Grass isn't that much bigger. And you actually hit Quagsire, so what are the frigging odds? Poor Quag. Oh, whoops, that's not what I wanted. Yeah, poor Quag. How could you do that to him? Anyway, so I'm going to switch to Snorlax, and I rather carelessly let myself get boomed on. Because being careless is the name of the game today. I should have just gone back to Quagsire or something. Although, you know, who's to say he wasn't going to Ice Punch? And getting, you know, the strongest boom is the unexpected one. So booming on, you know, when it makes the least sense can sometimes be the best move. Like when you're at full health or on a switch. Like let's say Gengar is facing Skarmory and you explode right then and there. So you don't, you know, wait until Raikou comes in. You know, you stay a step ahead of your opponent. You know, because if you just Thunderbolt into Raikou with Gengar, let's say, and then you're like, all right, now I can boom on it. And then they double back to not Tyranitar, because they probably would have gone to it in the first place, but they double back to Skarmory because either you're going to Snorlax or you're exploding. There's no way you're just going to stay in and Ice Punch or Thunderbolt against a Raikou that's going to 2-hit KO you. You know, it's a harder guessing game than exploding. I mean, it can be hard to pull that trigger, you know, exploding with that Gengar against Skarmory, but realistically, then they need that Skarmory for your lax, and so that way you stay ahead of them and minimize a much more difficult guessing game. So that's the idea anyway. So in comes Eggy, who won't kill me with Psychic, let alone Giga Drain, and there's no way it's Psychic last. It's got to be Explosion. So I, you know, let this thing get blown up on 2. So he booms twice and takes out Lax, so literal 2 for 1. And now he sends in Muck. I was expecting Zapdos, but that would have been a little too easy. I could have just rested with Quag and been fine, but he's got Muck, and Muck is 198 speed, meaning faster than Fori and faster than Quag. And, you know, I can... The standard Muck set is Curse, Sludge Bomb, Fire Blast, Explosion. Sometimes they run Giga Drain over Curse, which means they would ruin Quag. So my plan is pretty much throw Zapdos at it, because if he curses, at least he'll be slower. And I don't think he's going to break Zapdos with just naked Sludge Bombs. He's going to have to curse if he wants to actually break the Zapdos. So that'll make him slower, so I can, you know, EQ and explode with Quagsire and Fori. And yeah, I don't want to switch T-Tar into it just yet, especially because I don't have a move to really hurt it. So in comes Snorlax, and now I go to Fori, because not really much of a choice, because my last is Drum Clefable. And I just have to explode. So now I just have to chip this Snorlax as much as possible and then try and win with Clefable, which is actually very doable, as I'm going to EQ, not do a lot, but he's Double Edge, which is the preferred option on fast-paced offense because you want to do as much damage as possible. If this was a slower team with like Marowak or Machamp or Rhydon setup, then yeah, maybe you want Body Slam's Paralysis, but overall for a fast-paced booming offense team like this, you want Double Edge. So now he's, you know, Clefable can actually finish him off, and if he rests, then I can Belly Drum. And I don't think he's going to be Rest Talk, mono double edge without pursuit support, especially given that Gengar already annoys his team by virtue of the fact that he has a Muck. So I just return, and now we're pretty much in the same position as, in a similar position to earlier, because I don't want to keep Clefable in. That's obviously very, very bad. But I can keep going to Zapdos and, just kind of muscle through it, and he makes a great double to Snorlax. But here's the thing. We're replaying that turn just so I can explain. So I go back to Clefable now, and if he double edges, then I Moonlight, and double edge does 50% max, like literal absolute max, meaning that even a crit is, I don't think I calc the crit, but even a crit is like extremely low chance to KO. Yeah, see, this is the, okay, well, 48.7% chance apparently. It's because my Clefable was at 93. Yeah, see, at 2.6% with a crit, so extraordinarily low odds. And he's going to be doing more recoil to himself, and return is not doing that much either, but I can spam Moonlight, make him take more double edge recoil, and eventually he's going to need to rest, or he's going to get finished off by Tar, and then I would win the game. But that's only if he crits, and, 93.75% of the time, aka the percent of the time he does not get a crit, then I just Moonlight back to full, wait for him to rest, and then get a drum off. So Clef comes in, he rests right away, and it's drumming time. So we want to see it from the other perspective just because. So yeah, we get the drum off, and now the alien is back for revenge in Aliens. I know that's not actually what happened, but yeah, return drops Muck, would have OHKO'd it even from full, and it's a very low chance to KO Snorlax, I believe. Not +2, +6. Yeah, actually it's a pretty high chance. Wow, that's from 94%, so 20, yeah, let's call it a 21% chance with a crit. But Snorlax is asleep, and even if it was awake, it wouldn't be killing me, so, or if it sleep talks double edge or something. So yeah, Clef wins this one. Coolio. So on to the third Gen 3 game. So the score, if you care, was 2-1 Mcmeghan RBY, and right now 2-0 me, GSC. So another Lax Mirror, and we both go to Cloyster this time. So, and I decided to get the Toxic off first, because I'm running the Sandslash team, with also Dragonite. And remember my rule earlier about, one gimmicky-ish Pokemon? Yeah, with Sandslash, you want to stick to what works, but this team is both an example of some cool stuff that happened. Like, what happens here with Dragonite is extremely cool, I think. But the team overall is kind of a failure. But we'll get more on that later. So, first of all, what Dragonite does here is that I think it can live a Cloyster Explosion? I'm not 100% sure, as it's very naturally bulky. Yeah, it's a 59% chance, which isn't great, but, it's better than something like Zapdos, which always dies. Anyway, Dragonite here is immune to spikes and resists Surf and scares Cloyster out with a faster Thunder, which will KO it from that point because it does 89 minimum, and it's at 83 right now. So I take advantage of that, and I do what D-Knight is supposed to, T-Wave. Now, paralyzing Snorlax, you think, oh, big deal, Snorlax is already slow, but robbing Snorlax of the chance to move is really nice. Not to mention it gives you an upper hand with your own Snorlax. And another move, Dragonite likes to use his Dynamic Punch, which is, of course, a lot more useful with Paralysis, because even if you miss, then the opponent still might paralyze, and if you hit, then obviously they have to deal with Paralysis and Confusion. Now, here's another cool thing Dragonite can do. Now, the reason why it's doing better than Exeggutor in this game is because it didn't take spikes when it came into Cloyster, and Exeggutor is also slower than Cloyster, meaning free reign to get boomed on. So here I decide Gengar is a big threat for Sandslash and T-Tar and everything pretty much, so I'm going to eat the Ice Punch for not even that much damage, honestly, and get the T-Wave off. And T-Wave ruins Gengar, so now I go to Liz Lemon again and get Frozen. And so that kind of sucks, especially because Nidoking came in on what was an Earthquake, because that is my anti-Gengar move. But I thaw out, at least there's that. And yeah, so I have my sleep-talking Snorlax as an answer, which wakes up, so that was nice, and then I decide, I get a little hasty here, and I just double edge, and this actually gets very ugly because my team is torn apart by Nidoking, besides, because my Zapdos on this team is not Rest Talk, and I get a crit on his team, which, so I get a crit here, because he Sleep Talks double edge, which already does a lot, and so this was extremely silly of me to just go for it, and then I get a crit, which does a fuckload of recoil. So now I'm very vulnerable to Nidoking, and that is, especially because it took no damage switching into Tar. I tried to EQ it on the switch there, but he's running Rest Talk EQ, aka, ugh. Because I personally am not crazy about those lax sets, but that's me personally. Anyway, so, yeah, I guess he figured, intelligently so, that T-Tar usually doesn't threaten lax, so he can just stay in, burn some sleep. So I should have just risked the speed tie and rested, because, and it turns out he Sleep Talk rest, so I should have risked the speed tie and the Sleep Talk and rested, because now I'm just boned by Nidoking, so again, head in the clouds. So I get the Dynamic Punch, but he actually Sleep Talks rest, and now he shows Starmie, so he's running Fear's offensive team, so yeah. And now I'm in trouble, and I Whirlwind because I don't know, should have just... He expected Thunder, so smart move. And now I go to Dragonite, and he goes to Nidoking again, which I think was a little riskier than Snorlax on his end, but, you know, at this point, I'm just totally boned, because I got an Ice Beam pivot, and then pivot into Sand Slash, and he goes to... Yeah, so my team does not spread enough paralysis for Sand Slash, and has some major gaping holes, because I wanted a 4-attack set on T-Tar, which means no Sleep Talk on Zapdos, because I wanted phasing. So, flaws everywhere. He shows Protect Zapdos, because it is Fear's team, and I don't boom on it, instead thinking he'd go to Gengar, and then I'd boom, because I actually thought he had T-Bolt, honestly, but, yeah. Anyway, so... Yeah, this is mostly just getting run over by this Lax, which is actually really irritating against offense, and I think it's much better than the other ones, so now I'm just getting ripped up. God, Sand Slash is just the worst. Okay, it's not the worst, but it's not very good. So alongside Dragonite, you should have something more reliable, like some sort of Vaporeon, which still would have been a stretch to win this game, but, you know, had a lot more potential, you know, with the subset especially, so... Anyway, so... Yeah, Nidoking is going to clean me up. So, 2-1 GSC, and we've both taken a generation. So, Gen 3. Here's an awesome team that I made. I met Gaku in Prague the other day, and he was telling me about how... Well, we were talking about Kingdra, much to the chagrin of our girlfriends, who are starting the Girlfriends of Pokemon Players Club. Anyway, so they... so he was like, yeah, use Heracross alongside Kingdra, because Heracross rips up defensive stuff that Kingdra doesn't like. And presto, the first Pokemon we see from Mcmeghan's end is a Milotic, which is Kingdra's worst enemy. Or one of them, you know, alongside Blissey. But the teams that, you know, Milo, Claydol kind of stuff, that's terrified by Heracross. So I have a banned Heracross just because I think it's amazing, and with Milo and Claydol, you're not going to see a Gengar. So CB Focus Punch goes flying and does a fuckload to that Salamence. So we got to switch. Don't know if it's DD or mixed yet, but Zapdos... This Zapdos is max HP because I would need some DD Ments insurance, and also can stay in against T-Tar in a pinch to get off 2 T-Bolts. But it's also... you know, being max HP means it can switch into mixed ments. So I don't Baton Pass here, mainly because, not because I'm expecting him to stay in, but because I just want more leftovers on the, on my Zapdos, just to be able to switch into the ments more. But, so that works out, and T-Waving Snorlax isn't bad because I'm not relying on Will-O-Wisp Gengar to check it. On special offense, you know, that's disastrous, but I have a Leech Seed Celebi. I also have a Metagross, but Celebi maintains momentum with Baton Pass, you know, maybe scouts out some other switches, and scouts out a Metagross. Now, I go to Dugtrio, and while my Dugtrio is adamant, then I'm still not expecting it to KO. However, I don't think Dugtrio is going to be too useful against this team, because I'm expecting his last to be DD Tar, and my Dug is adamant and very slow, so it's going to get outsped. So... I was like, you know what? If I can put Metagross into KO range for Heracross, Zapdos, Celebi, Kingdra, and my own Metagross, that's good enough. Plus, if he Earthquakes because he thinks he's max attack and he thinks he can just OHKO me, because Bulkless Doug does get OHKO'd by 400 attack Earthquake, neutral Earthquake, not stab, then, you know, I can live because I have some HP EVs, so I'd be favored there. But I end up just killing him, so I have to assume it was a CB Gross, which makes a lot of sense, you know, once I stop and think about it, because he's not fitting Magneton on that team. He's got a mixed Ments, so he needs to generate a lot of offense, and CB Gross's auto KO style against Skarm teams is going to go a long way. Plus, he doesn't even have to auto KO it, because he can just mash it down and spin with Claydol later. Plus, I assume his Snorlax is going to pressure the the Skarmory as well. Anyway, so here comes my Lodic, and I am not pressured by it. I can just go to Celebi. Turns out he has Hypnosis, so defensive utility, but also offensive pressure. That's what Hypno Milo does. So we trade inaccurate moves, and I go to Zapdos here, expecting him to take advantage of my free switch, or of his free switch with Salamence, but he goes to Snorlax, which is a smart move, because he thinks that if my Celebi is my Snorlax check, and that's the only check I have to it, then once it's asleep, he can send Snorlax into it and suddenly be really threatening. Now, he doesn't know I have a Metagross yet. And you would assume that the last is going to be like T-Tar and Swampert or something, so that's a good assumption. And therefore, I can totally see why he does it. However, it's still fine because I got more HP on my Zapdos, which is great because Mixed Ments is threatening, so I can check it better. So I BP out and reveal my Metagross just because I want to see what I can make happen. I get a lucky full para. And there's my Lodic. You know, the process is so ridiculous because 25%, you know, that's not even lucky, quote unquote, because, you know, a crit is lucky. An Ice Beam freeze is lucky. Jirachi's Psychic Spadef drop, that's when it's, or T-Tar Crunch drop, that's when it stops being, you know, pure luck all the time. That's 20%. And a full paralysis is 5% more than that. It's crazy. Anyway, so yeah, Para's dumb. But yeah, I'm thinking, well, if I can remove Milo somehow with, you know, Metagross's Boom, then that could open up Kingdra sweeping. Especially if I can, or I can, you know, just throw out more attacks with my CB Heracross. So I think I just go for a safe Meteor Mash, you know, force a recover maybe get an attack boost, and I can just fall back safely to my Celebi. And he Hypnosises right away. So now he makes a great move and he goes to Salamence, because I go to Heracross expecting him to pull the Snorlax trick. But at the same time, that was also foolish of me, because why would he pull the Snorlax trick to get ahead when he's seen that I have a Metagross, so Snorlax isn't going to get him very far, and Salamence is much more of a threat. So that was smarter on his end, and not so good on my end. However, turns out this is a blessing in disguise, because I do some calcs, and turns out not only is Heracross going to live any Mixed Ments hit because it's naturally bulky, and I also invest some bulk on it, because I don't like max speed. I like to throw some HP. I find it goes a long way, especially against offense Celebi and Jirachi Psychics. Then it also means it's going to live any Salamence hit comfortably, and, you know, maybe even Sand afterwards. And I'm very, very favored to kill with Rock Slide. So I'm like, you know what? CB Hera is awesome, and we're going to show why. What else could do that? I mean, the surviving part, sure, but the living? Yeah. I mean, okay, in theory, Salak could have set up a Swords Dance and fucking cleaned house, but whatever. So, despite the -1, the Choice Band kills it from 67, and that was just a great feeling. So now, even better, I run Swarm on my CB Hera because no one tries to status it. And plus I have a Celebi for status anyway, which soaks it pretty nicely. You know, T-Waves and Will-O-Wisps and whatnot. And Heracross tends to get knocked down to low HP a lot, you know, by Sandstorm, especially in the face of Protect Swampert. So I figured once it gets down to low HP, then I want its Mega Horn to be an auto KO on stuff. You know, it has a chance to, it's a great chance in Sand, but, you know, just, it has a chance to OHKO offensive Zapdos cleanly, which is crazy. So later I can come back in and just Mega Horn and probably kill something else. So now I gotta get out of here because I'm -1 locked on Rock Slide, but it's okay because I still have Celebi, and he's not really pressuring it. He's, you know, Hypnosis is one thing, but he's hidden Hypnosis. He goes to Claydol. I sleep just to see what he's going to. which in hindsight was really dumb. Well, okay, no, it wasn't, because I still have my Metagross for Heracross. Or rather, my Metagross and my Kingdra for T-Tar, so not that dumb, but I still probably should have gone to Zapdos or something. So I go to my Zapdos now, and he predicts that nicely and goes for Rock Slide, because he's running one of those offensive Claydolls. And I think, you know, if his last is Tar, I don't really need Zapdos, so I'm just going to chip this. You know, not really important, honestly, but I decide, you know what, the extra chip, the first chip was nice, you know, for Metagross and, you know, spamming Brick Break with Heracross. And, you know, being able to Ice Beam with Kingdra maybe, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to be too useful, and I may as well keep Zapdos, because the second piece of chip really isn't going to get me anywhere. So I decided to BP to Doug, who I really don't think is going to be useful. So I don't want to HP Bug will definitely kill this Claydol, because it's offensive, and I don't want to let T-Tar set up on it if I can help it. So I'm going to go for Earthquake, and my Milotic comes in and gets 2-hit KO'd because Adamant Doug Trio is awesome. So that was a highlight. You don't see that very often. Doug Trio chasing out Claydol and 2-hit KO'ing Milotic as it comes in. Unfortunately, he reveals a fucking Gyarados, which, yikes. Because my Zapdos is weakened because I just let it get chipped. So that really blows. Luckily, I have a plan. I go to Metagross first, 100% no matter what. And even if he switches out, I explode, because afterwards I can leech it with Celebi and then beat it with my Kingdra. You know, because it can also live a +1 HP flying Psychic. If I can leech it, then I can beat it. Not to mention, on the double down, I can go to Zapdos and, you know, get more lefties, you know, and put myself out of range. You know, if he's HP Rock, if he's HP Rock, he doesn't have HP Flying for Celebi, so if I can put myself out of HP Flying range, you know, that's fine. Because even if he goes to his Snorlax, then I can just BP to Celebi, and then I'm still fine. Or, you know, in the vicinity of being fine. So no matter what, I was exploding, and I think he expected me to overpredict or something, because he stays in an Earthquakes, and I just take him out. Luckily, I go to Doug because it's threatening no matter what, and I get a big Earthquake off on the Snorlax. Die to Body Slam, but that's fine because now I go to Heracross, and I love CB Brick Break on this thing. Having the reliable stab is so nice. And take that down. Take down the Claydol, and I just reveal Kingdra because, you know, there's no reason to hide it. And he explodes because he's running a max speed Adamant Claydol. Not Jolly, because that would have outsped my Heracross. Or, yes, yeah. So that goes down. Is my playlist still running? Oh yeah, keep watching, please. Come on. Získate jeden měsíc. Anyway, so moving on to advanced game number 2. So here I'm running a different kind of Heracross plus Weather team. My Suicune and my Charizard on this team, because spoiler, I do have Charizard, both have a weather move. Suicune has Rain Dance because Suicune hates sand, and clearing it for itself, you know, while giving it itself a weather boost, that's really nice. UD uses a great set with Sub, Rain Dance, Surf, Calm Mind, but I needed Ice Beam on mine because Suicune is the only thing standing between this team and complete annihilation at the hands, or wings, I guess, of DD Salamence. So I Calm Mind because Vaporeon lead means Sub Pass, and that means, you know, he can't really hurt me. So I'm going to Calm Mind and make whatever he passes out to have a tougher time. So he goes to Raikou, and I don't have a good response to this, so I just have to Hydro twice, and luckily that should be enough, because I am going to 2-hit KO it. So he Thunderbolts, and miss, and I am in a shitty spot, because now I have to go to Celebi, which might not even be too good if he's Sub, or, yeah, so I just have to go for Psychic, and he's going to Celebi, and we see very quickly that this is not fun, because he's Calm Mind, and almost surely passing it, so I have to go to Charizard and just hope for the best. And he's got Zapdos too, and at this point I know I'm toast, because I'm very familiar. He's running a slower agility set, which is awesome, and one of my favorite teams ever is a agility pass Zapdos, Calm Mind pass Celebi team, and I also have Vaporeon on mine, on the second version, the original Advents, and that team became pretty well known, and this is, you know, exactly why it was so good with just these 3 passing guys. So I set up the sun, and now he can't hydro my Metagross, so I'd have to just Earthquake. But he makes a good move and passes to Zapdos, and then passes to Jirachi to absorb the explosion. So that was really heads up on his end. And a very nice way of moving around the threat. So the nice thing about this pass stuff is it's special offense that doesn't really care about Blissey. Anyway, so Celebi can live a hit and, can withstand Jirachi, but it's not getting me too far because his Celebi is going to pass all over my ass again. So I have to hope and pray that he goes for a Psychic against my Heracross, or that he even has Psychic. Giga Fire is common coverage on offensive Calm Mind past Celebi, and he doesn't, so I just have to stay in and hope I crit the Zapdos as he Thunderbolts me down into Swarm range. Because he's agilitying, so my Salic won't get me anywhere. Which is a shame, because I was looking forward to using Reversal Heracross. So I sack Suicune, and now because he just passes back to Vaporeon. And I Leech. He was expecting that, because I use Leech on this just to... I should probably use Calm Mind. But, yeah. Actually, I should definitely use Calm Mind. I just like that Leech set. Anyway, so I get to Endure Leech, which is not something you see very often, so at least there was that. God, Advance is so wonderfully colorful. Anyway, so yeah, down goes Hera, and down goes everything else. As so does my Duck Trio. So, 1-1 in advance. And now here comes the fun part. Are you ready? Because if you didn't see this on stream, you are in for a treat. And even if you did see this on stream, this will never get old. Motherfucking Slacking. And, he's leading off with Metagross, and, it dies to Earthquake. Because, I mean, if you don't believe me, then let's just examine the calc. Okay, it's not 100% clean KO, but against, standard CB Gross, then this fucking drops. Even against max HP, it's a 50% chance to. So I don't think he's risking it on the first turn, especially because he's not killing... Well, first of all, Metagross is really useful defensively for any team it's on. Even Choice Band variants that like to explode early on are defensively useful, for a time at least, until they decide that it's less about defensive use and more about blowing up the Scarm to deny its spikes. Point being that CV meta is going to die, so he wants to get it out of there. And the defensive Metagross that you rely on defensively is not going to want to take a CB Earthquake when it's not even going to be hurting the Slacking that much on the first turn. And because then you can't rely on the Metagross defensively to handle your Arrows and Menses and T-Tars and whatnot. So that is why, with that in mind, I go for Double Edge, and Jumpluff comes in and gets fucking obliterated. So that was a good feeling. Now, of course, my team is incredibly flawed because Slacking is incredibly flawed. So my switch into, a simple Earthquake or Fire Blast is Metagross. So luckily he switches out and he goes to his Gross, and I'm like, you know what? I need to cause as much pain as possible. So I know I'm gonna die to a CB Earthquake, but I'm faster. I'm Jolly Max Speed because I'm Endure Salic, and then I'm going to finish it off with Magneton. So it's still, it is 5-4 now because I got 2 for 1. In a sense, just, but yeah, and whatever can't really come in. Now, here's an example of why it's important to run Earthquake on Snorlax. Now, I generally think Earthquake on Snorlax is really important for one-on-ones against T-Tar and hitting Metagross on the switch and beating Jirachi one-on-one. You don't want Calm Mind Jirachi messing you up and forcing you to explode. But even Magneton, because Magneton is, everyone likes to say, oh, Magneton is this useless blob that exists to kill Scarm. Not true. Magneton can be incredibly annoying. And here we see, as soon as you drop Earthquake, then suddenly, it's got great resistances because it's a Steel type. So, you force stuff like this, and, if I'm assuming he's a Curse Focus Punch Snorlax because he's not going to have Magneton alongside Jumpluff. That would just be too little. He would have too much to cover in his remaining slots without enough covered by them. So that's, Curse Focus Punch because he has to pressure Scarm, but that also means he can't handle Mag one-on-one, and he blows up. So now the score is 4-3, and Magneton did a lot. So now I go to this thing, and I'm just, I can't handle a DD Ments if it comes in, But right now I'm just earthquaking because what I can't handle is if I let the T-Tar DD on my double edge, because then he DDs twice and the game is over. So I earthquake and it just fucking drops. So now comes Swampert, which is absolutely going to be a Salic set. So I go to this, and unfortunately he is the Salic variant I fear, which is Swagger. Now the good news is my last is Aerodactyl, which outruns even +1 Swampert. So as long as I can prevent him, from having a sub up, then I should be fine. So I break the sub, and what I also need to do is get him low enough to be in arrow range, because while arrow hits bulkless pert really hard, it's not 76% hard. So I go to my Houndoom with an awesome German nickname, and as in this is literally Houndoom's German nickname name, and I crunch him down. And on the stream, I actually was like, oh, wait, shit, I have to blow up on him with lax. I can't, just... Obviously, I couldn't stay in, but I couldn't go to slacking because, free turns. So So I ended up making the right move, but I definitely didn't not want to crunch him down to Salic. So that was where I wanted to crunch him down to, 26%. Now I can get rid of the sub, Swagger willing, sacrificing lax just to do that. And then I can... I mean, if he's got a immense last, then that sucks. Actually, although I don't know if he would even want to set up on my Will-O-Wisp, but yeah, I go to Houndoom just because... Actually, slacking can probably take a +1 hit, who knows, but he doesn't have DD Immense Last, he has a Registeel, so I have this one... I mean, in theory, I didn't have it entirely in the bag. No, I think so. I just go to Arrow after an EQ spam, and barring like T-Wave and insane para sub luck, then I would have been fine. But yeah. So, and now Arrow's going to finish it off because, first of all, I wanted to use this awesome nickname that my buddy Mcmeghan/Walrus Cove gave me a long time ago, 10 years. And also because slacking would give the pert a sub, and then I would lose, so instead I win. So, that's 2-1 in advance. Not that it really matters. I mean, come on, we're using fucking slacking and jump left. Alright, so now DPP, and this one's a real treat. So I'm going to take my bathroom break now because I can promise that once I get back, the wait will have been worth it. Alright, here we go. Gen 4 was the most agonizing thing to figure out what I wanted to use in, but yeah, here we go. So, Metagross leads. Oh yeah, this is awesome. So, I don't have Earthquake on this. This team was adapted from a Trick Room team that August used against me on stream, and I had my own idea for what would go well with it. Basically, I changed Slowking out for Magnezone. Because I thought Bronzong, well, mainly Skarmory and Jirachi were annoying, because the goal here is to spam Head Smash. So what I wanted to do against the Metagross was, because I'm max speed, I'm probably going to be faster, because that's what Sash Gross does. It runs max speed. And so I would Meteor Mash to break the sub, and then live the EQ, and then explode and double down. So instead, he decides to preserve his Gross, and he goes to his Bronzong, which, if it's a defensive variant, especially with Protect, then that's great, but not so much an offensive variant with no lefties and just max HP investment. And the Mash boost obviously doesn't help much, but he was getting, like, let's say I don't get that first boost, he's still switching in, rocks up 26, I'm chipping him down, plus I can always just explode on him, and that's already great for my Head Smashers, and I get to preserve my Magnet Rise Magnezone to take out the Metagross and get boomed on, as opposed to potentially getting boomed on by Bronzong. Instead, he's got his own Magnezone, so we're both running some offense, and I'm hoping he doesn't have Protect, which is not very much in vogue, although I did consider it more because he had leftovers. Anyway, so I go to my own Magnezone because it finishes off Zong, it Magnet Rise beats, or trades with Metagross because Explosion, and turns out he runs Starmie as well, so that's an instant giveaway. He's got a DD Dragonite to me. So 1v1, I'm just going to spam T-Bolt, and he can get rid of the rocks, but Starmie goes down, so this is good. This makes cleaning up easier. He goes to T-Tar, and I agonize over this because I've got a Trick Room Bronzong, but I also want to I want to Magnet Rise these guys. But at the same time, I don't know, it was a tough decision. I probably could have kept it. I was kind of afraid of DD, but, I should have thought, hey, come on, you need a Pursuit on this kind of team, because otherwise the Rotom forms are just utter death. Which is further why I should have had that in mind, and I T-Wave it, and he's Lumberry, because the Rotom forms are such death. And he has Fire Blast, which I didn't expect. Lumberry or Choice Bands were my expectations, but I T-Wave just because I was so fearful of DD, which is dumb because I had a frigging Bronzong. So I should have just gone to that. But I was afraid of throwing away one of my only 2 Trick Room setters, because I want them to clean up because I still got 4 Pokemon to get through. So it wasn't a very good decision because Trick Room teams are awful defensively, obviously. But yeah, I should have kept the zone more healthy, but it's fine. He runs Fire Blast, which I thought was surprising because alongside Magnezone, I think Ice Beam is better because it still beats Breloom, but it also kills Gliscor. And you don't need Fire Blast for Skarm, obviously, so I just weaken it. And I go to... Yeah, I spoiled it already, but I go to my Rampardos. And I get to Mold Breaker Earthquake because that kills T-Tar and smashes Metagross. And Bronzong gets hit by EQ because of Mold Breaker, nullifying Levitate. So in comes Metagross, and I go to Bronzong of my own, so I'm glad I preserved that at least. Although because Trick Room and whatnot. But he explodes before I even get a chance to get the Trick Room up. So now it's all about Uxie getting the Trick Room. So I go to Uxie. He does have the Dragonite. Luckily, I have the perfect counter to that and Trick Room, and that should be the game. Now, I make a misplay here. I don't go to Aggron. I should have just gone to Aggron because that leaves me with 2 Head Smashers. So if Aggron misses 1 Head Smash, then I can go to Rampardos and try it again. So that was really dumb of me. I was afraid of him using Earthquake or something, but even if he uses Earthquake on my... Even if he does make that move, which would be ridiculous, then then I still have to go to another Head Smasher. So Aggron was 100% the better move there, but, I'm kind of autopiloting, and we're playing for like an hour now. Anyway, so Head Smash destroys, and I make another fucking Bonehead move. Get it? Bonehead? Because I forgot, he's paralyzed. He's slower than me. So I should have gone to Uxie and just let it run out. Instead, I just sub. He Dark Pulses, trying to keep up the Trick Room on, it wouldn't have killed Uxie, but if with a crit it would have, as opposed to superpowering, and then the Trick Room runs out, and then Aggron wins. But, he Dark Pulses, and, I get to hit another Head Smash, and so that was stupid of me, but whatevs. So, now here's my favorite replay of the entire evening. So I lead off with a CB Azelf, and he leads off with Hariyama. So I'm instantly thinking Badoosh's old Fight Span. That's the only team I remember that ran Hariyama in the last, decade or so. In an actual tournament setting. Anyway, so Hariyama stays in on Azelf because it's supposed to, muscle through it. But I'm CB, it's not Sash, or Colbur, or, any Stealth Rock variant, Lum, or Damp Rock, or whatever. So I just get the KO. I go to Metagross because it's supposed to beat Jirachi. And I just EQ. And now I'm thinking, alright, well, I get to pull off this awesome strategy that XCal came up with. So I wanted to go to Azelf on Ironhead here and blow up. But I ended up not canceling in time. And luckily I don't even get the flinch, so that's great. So now I get to get a KO before trying this awesome Azelf strategy. So I now CB Explode. I wanted to Ice Punch, and save the CB Explosion for later, but I figured, no, let's not dick around. Let's just explode. And especially because there's almost certainly going to be a T-Tar. So instead he just stays in. and Explosion. So now I go to my Lucario and Machamp. Now, Lucario can't KO Machamp with anything, even a CB close combat. And this is a Scarf Lucario, so there's no chance, barring a stupid crit. But I use Copycat, and I copy Azov's Explosion, and I just drop the Machamp. And now I go to my own Machamp. So that was an awesome feeling. That is strategy credited to XCal. Copycat Scarf Lucario is awesome. Like, if you get roared in, then you could just Scarf Copycat Roar 32 times and phase the other team around. It's brutal. Even with just Stealth Rock, it destroys them. So, yeah, I mean, obviously you get ruined by Protect, but, anyway. So, here's my Top Gun Machamp from a very erotic scene. Anyway, so I gotta get out of there from Gyarados, but I have a Scarf Latios, because this is a revamp of my team that I spammed just a couple of months ago. I just put Lucario over Gyarados because I was tired of Stealth Rock week. Anyway, I have Scarf T-Wave. DD Gyara doesn't run Lum almost ever. And yeah, so now I'm almost certain the last is T-Tar, but I didn't want to boom Metagross just because Metagross handles so much. So I decided to be an asshole and, play the odds with Parafusion, especially because Machamp hits Gyarados even if it bounces because of no guard. So, fun fact, one of life's greatest feelings is when Gyarados bounces on Machamp, not realizing that you're just stone edging it while it's in the air. It's awesome. So yeah, I just D-punch, especially because he's not going to kill me with a +1 attack, and the odds are in my favor, and I do that like a douchebag. But yeah, it turns out it is T-Tar, so Metagross and my own Tar would have been fine. So yeah, that is that. And we'll look at it one more time at the end, just because that was so glorious. Alright, so now third DPP. I'm running a more semi-stallish team. Not stall, but just, some cool stuff I thought would work together. And I don't have a great response, so I just want Rocks up, because T-Tar always lives unboosted Mash. So now I go to Rotom, Dodge, I have Lefties, I have Pain Split, and he has Swampert. And I love Shaman, because Shaman, whenever people start spamming, Water Spam and Trap, and I'm just like, Shaman destroys. So it turns out he has his own Shaman because we're both big CL fans. So I decided to take this opportunity to go to Tentacruel on his HP Fire and get up T-Spikes because T-Spikes are great. And I maybe should have spun, but I decided to, because there's no way he has Earth Power, because he should have used that. So I shouldn't have knocked off the lefties because I can just wall it with Heatran after. So I just should have spun just to ease some pressure off myself. But then I at least made the good move of saving Tentacruel as a sack. And then I decided to dick around and, check for Earth Power just to be sure. I could have protected, but I arguably shouldn't have even done that. And then I just end up losing health on my Shaman. So I played that horribly and, lost Pokemon when I didn't need to, but at least yeah. So, and then I explode the Heatran on the Dragonite, which is a big threat. I had Scarf Latios, maybe I should have used it. Anyway, but now I'm in trouble against everything, and I have Healing Wish, but it's not going to be enough, and I really should have preserved the Heatran, especially because Metagross is also a threat. So, yeah, But, to his credit, he's playing well around it, and I crit him into Custap range, where you see he was probably going to beat me otherwise. So I switch on the Custap, and I finish him off, but I know his last is Weavile, so I am toast regardless. And my only hope is to protect like a gajillion times, and I get the double but not the triple, and then I would have had to stall out the Pert from full health. So he clearly hacks the shit out of me there. Alright, moving on to Black and White, the final generation. Whoops, go back. Alright. So I have 6 dragons because fuck Magnezone, and I like what each of them does. So Banded, Sash with rocks to lure Latios. Banded, Scarf. So, yeah. I love DD Moxie Dragon Gem Mens. It's so good, but I decided I need immediate speed against Latios, because it destroys. Anyway, so in one way, I get a not good matchup because I'm facing Mamoswine, especially with Sand for chip on guys that might otherwise live a shard like Latios and Haxorus. On the other hand, he has no steel types, so I lucked out there. So I lead off with Garchomp just because I want rocks and I want to damage stuff, and I get to find out his sets because I was assuming Scarflando, but it's not Scarflando. So I Swords Dance up as he HP ices, and he does not know I'm Sash. He could assume Dragon Gem Outrage. In reality, I'm Sash Dragon Claw, just for Latios, but he doesn't know that, so he sacks Volk, and so that's good. And now Mamo comes in, and Ice Shard. So the only Ice Shard that has a chance of killing Haxorus is Choice Band. I don't think he's going to run that. He's not running Life Orb, so I think he's running Never Melt Ice. That was a weird pronunciation of Life Orb, I'm sorry. Life Orb. Anyway, so I think it's Never Melt Ice. I know he likes that set, especially with subs. So even then, I'm just going to say, you know what? Outrage. And I was thinking about dual chopping just to preserve it, because if it is Never Melt Ice, then I can live another Ice Shard after Rocks. But I realized, no, there's no switching done with this team. We Outrage, and I don't want to risk dual chop accuracy either, and instead Starmie gets goddamn destroyed. So Latios comes in, and of course the revenge kill. So now here comes another great moment, because here's why I have Scarf Ments. Otherwise, my only method of outspeeding Latios, which you have to assume is Specs, because, you know, Scarf will just ruin you regardless, would be to go Latios, and then I would get pursued by Tar with immense ease, and then Latios would just sweep me clean. You know, I'd have to hope for a CBE speed crit. So this is why I have Scarf Ments, for the immediacy. So I know he's going to Landorus, because, you know, it can soak up Scarf Outrages, and that is why I put HP Ice on it, and I predict the switch, and HP Ice fucking connects and drops it cleanly. So that was a great feeling. And I even get an attack boost to offset his Intimidate. Of course, I'm locked into HP Ice now, and that's really bad because like I said earlier, I think the Mamoswine might have sub, and I do not want to give him a free sub. So I'm going to break the no switching rule, but it's fine because Dragonite is sent here to be sacked entirely because E-Speed has +2 priority, one of the better changes that Black and White made. And it means that even if Mamoswine is Jolly, because my Dragonite is Adamant, they have the same base speed, then I will beat him to the punch with a priority, so I will break his sub and then be able to send in my Kyurem. So, yeah, that goes down, and here comes Kyurem for another KO. You know, I'm ahead in sacks, that's always crucial. And I go for Dragon Claw, just because that way I can still take my KO on the Tar, but I can switch back out and soak another Outrage. Ice Shard, easily. So that was another, you know, antithesis of the Haxorus move, but here it was more justified, especially because Dragon Claw is 100% accurate. So he thought, you know, he had a little bit of brain fart, and he's like, is that Scarf Kyurem? But even if he goes to Latios here, then it doesn't matter because I sack Latios, I go to my Scarf Ments, I Outrage. If you know, Mamoswine comes and it dies and then I clean up, or if he stays in with Latios, it dies and then Mamoswine Ice Shards and I win anyway. So this game was already over, but he had a little bit of a brain fart and let me kill his Mamoswine, but it doesn't really matter. It just made the score 2-0 instead of 1-0. So, yeah. Dragons. Look at Brutalonda, another great... I was mixing it up with French and German nicknames, which gained prominence throughout, you know, on the ladder whenever you face... This is an old thing, I don't think you get this much anymore, but in the PO days you would face a French player who was running Motisma Ew, the Rotom, and other such names that I've used here. So yeah, this is a team using Moltres, which I still think is awesome, but the supporting cast is not that good. Speaking of French names, then he plays this beautifully, and I was like, oh, no weather's sweet, and I was like, wait, what's the most common Magnezone set? Oh, right, Sunny Day. So he makes a great move. I also wish I had my favorite Spadef Politoed, which eats Latios for breakfast and would have let me Toxic for free, but I Protect, and he plays it perfectly, goes to Rotom, Volt switches, and then goes to Magnezone on Toxic. Now, my good news is that my Jirachi set is pretty good against this team, is because Magnezone never, ever, ever runs leftovers anymore. But I'm still not in a great spot against it. And I go to Breloom, and he's Sunny Days, and I, you know, not only am I probably slower, but I can't even hit him because I'm sub-Focus Punch. So I go to Lando and eat a big HP Fire. Oh, and the reason I ran Physical Defense Polito is because the Physical Defense core on this team is pretty abysmal, so I gotta be able to stand on Terrakions and stuff. So Lando comes in, and here comes Politoed, and I gotta just scald and hope for something good to happen, but he's volt switching all over my ass, and Latios comes in, Trick, another great move, and I'm able to, I thought the rocks were important, and they were, and I'm running Protect, not Wish, but I Protect here, and then I make a fucking bonehead move and just totally space out, and I was afraid of, U-turn or HP Ice, but he just makes the right move in Earthquakes, because even if I switch out, then it's a lot better than if you have to U-turn out of Jirachi. So, I lose Jirachi, and that's pretty much the entire game, because now Latios just melts me, because it kills Tentacruel even through Protect, and now it's just... Moltres can't pull any miracles, because Volt Switch is gonna, break, and yeah, he's running Timid Specs Hydreigon. What a jackass. I love Hydreigon, though. I just like plus special attack. Anyway, so even with a million pieces of paralysis luck, then that was super over, so I saved some time, because we've been playing for a while now, and move on. So, this is not an entirely new team. This is a team I made at the end of 2016, early 2017, and it is awesome, because on the surface, it looks like a super, super boring standard sand team, but it's Scarf Rotom, and no one was using Scarf Rotom then. Now it's a little more accepted, but back then it didn't exist at all. And I changed it nowadays to be Scarf Latios, which I think is more important. The Heatran is Air Balloon Flame Charge, and the Gliscor is not Poison Heal, but instead it's Hyper Cutter, so it can't be intimidated, and it's Flying Gem, Swords Dance, Earthquake, Acrobatics, and Rock Polish. So sweeps offense and defense, especially now that we don't see a lot of Scarms, because it's not that good. So, yeah, here we go. I decided to lead off with the Fun Cooker, an excellent 30 Rock reference, because it handles everything on his team besides Starmie, and Starmie's not a good lead against this team at all. I mean, it's not great against Kyurem, but, this is not the kind of team you want to really lead Kyurem against, because I guess it depends on a set. We're not really sure, and maybe it would have been a good lead, but if I decided to lead Latios because there's no weather, who knows. This is back when Latios often ran Surf HP Fire, but that has no bearing on this. I just thought it would be a nice tidbit to mention. Anyway, Balloon Heatran is known for running HP Ice. Garchomp does not want to just die on the first turn, so I expect him to go to Starmie. So he does, and I go to T-Tar. Now, I'm not in the business of killing the Starmie. I want to keep up rocks. I want to get him up and keep him up, because he's got a Volk and a Kyurem, and I really don't like either of them. So I'm not even going to bother crunching, because if he Suicide Spins, that's fine. And maybe one could argue that I should have, but because he missed. But and Suicide Spinning was obviously dumb, because he could kill the T-Tar, or he could not kill the T-Tar and just Suicide Spin. But anyway, so I go to Rotom and Volt Switch, and I'm like... And I totally fucking blank on the fact that he has a Garchomp. Like, I'm just so used to not seeing Garchomp as a Volt immunity, because the non-Scarf sets have become so rare in Black and White. For some reason, I just can't explain that. Anyone who tells me usage is correlated to viability, I mean, I just can't believe that. I mean, there's something to be said for it, but the fact that non-Scarf Garchomp doesn't get spammed like hell in Black and White is... it's so good. Anyway, so Garchomp comes in now. And Volt Switch, I'm like, alright, here's Heatran time, because Starmie has also been weakened like hell, so with Rocks up, it is in range. And he's not expecting it to Flame Charge. No one expects it to Flame Charge. Some people call it the Eotran after Eo Ut Mortis, who liked to use it 7 years ago. Good God. Anyway, so he's going to just out-offense it, right? And then he can get the spin off, and, Volk will be dandy. So, but, he's expecting to just out-offense it because he can outspeed it, but he cannot. Because Flame Charge, boom, +1, and now, as he breaks the balloon, but now I break him. Anyway, so his first move is to cure him, and I'm like, alright, if he's banded and Fusion Bolts, then I set up with Gliscor and also probably sweep him. Although I know that might have been a little hasty, and I also know he's banded Pharaoh, but I think it still would have found a way, especially with Scarf Rotom and Scarf Latios. So, but I just want to break this Kyurem down. And plus CB without Magnezone is rare. Turns out he's not CB, and he's mixed. And he's not Earth Power either. He must have been Ice Beam, Fusion Bolt, HP Fire, and Roost. It's also a good set, something that hasn't been seen in a long time. But yeah, so Fire Blast is less than I expected, but it finishes him off. His Live Fusion Bolt, Live Bullet Punch. He doesn't go for it. He goes for the miss. Maybe he was Scarf. Maybe he was just trying to Swords Dance. But it drops. Starmie will drop to Earth Power. And if I hit 2 more Fire Blasts, the game is over. Although the game is over at this point anyway. So, luckily the Fun Cooker is going to take it all the way in. And that's the 15th game, so that's the final one. And not that it matters, but the score is in my favor. But, you know, it's for fun. But surprise, there's one more, because I dug up another old team that I thought was awesome. And I was like, one more? And he's like, yeah, what the hell. Anyway, so he brings out another team that he used to devastate an SPL with. And this team looks boring at first, but you'll see what makes it fun. You know, not as fun as the other one, but still fun. So this is a Pasho Berry Tran, because it was my way of helping deal with stupid-ass Rain and also Keldeo, because Keldeo is more tempted to go for the water move here, especially Scarf Keldeo, because you don't want a Secret Sword into Lando. And that was the train of thought at the time, anyway. And I think Keytrain can live an unboosted Secret Sword, because I have bulk on it, but it can't live a Hydro, so. Anyway, the Pasho is also nice because, well, I dodged the Hydro, or this Hydro from Rotom, but I also just get to stay and spam HP Grass, and it made me think of how good HP Grass, Grass Gem Tran used to be, and I still think it has a good place in Black and White, especially with the resurgence of Gastrodon and just total destruction of Politoed, so that's something to keep an eye out on. Anyway, so I get to Hydro, and there was a lot of rolls there. It was like 38, and then it was 43 and 41, and then it finishes off the Rotom at 42. I was considering Magma Storming, and then I realized that doesn't get me anywhere. Magma Storming the Dragons or Tyranitar. And yeah, so I finish off the Rotom, and I taunt because this Heatran set is awesome. This is the Grass Gem set, just without a Grass Gem and more bulk. So it turns out he's Shuka, because I think he's Ice Beam, because I recognize this as it being a DD Latios team. But yeah, so there's that, and Destroyer King takes down the Fun Cooker, but Fun Cooker killed a Pokemon in half, and I get to finish off this thing with Terrakion using the Japanese spelling of its name that we all contended with for the 6 months or whatever until the games were released in the US, in North America, with their American names. Anyway, so I'm not banded on Balloon because I'm running a super ancient set, literally a decade old, Swords Dance Rock Polish at Balloon. And one of the greatest feelings of all time is switching this into a Scarf Lando or Scarf Garchomp Earthquake, because they think, oh, well, your team is entirely fucking destroyed by a Scarf Earthquake, and then you switch into it with your Balloon and set up and destroy. Oh, it's wonderful. Anyway, so Sub-Jirachi is actually a major threat now that I let my Heatran go down. Luckily, my Keldeo has Rocky Helmet. And it's not a defensive set or anything, it's just an offensive Keldeo with 4 attacks, and I threw Rocky Helmet on it because I thought it was nice to chip Scarf Lando, and just generally good for U-turns. And chip in general, to help Keldeo finish things off more. I think it was okay. Nowadays I would use leftovers, but Rocky Helmet helps there as it brings the Jirachi into more secure Hydro death range. And I make a really dumb move here and don't Secret Sword. I mean, in theory, it doesn't really matter because I'm going to go to Terrakion in close combat after, and there's no way it lives, and he's not going to switch out to, you know, Garchomp or Latios or Magnezone, so it doesn't really matter. And Secret Sword but the thing is, Secret Sword still had a pretty good chance to KO, so I don't know why I didn't just go for it. Especially because it didn't matter. But, you know, live and learn. So, Terrakion, close combat, dead. And after this, he goes to a Magnezone, revealing he is, in fact, Chople. Now, my Latios is Scarf, thank God, because Scarf Latios is so good. And now I just want to break his Chople just so I can get a clean sweep and not let Latios DD and ruin my life. Especially if he's Ground Gem to kill Tar. I mean, I could play around it with Lando, but he could DD again, and it'd get messy. Especially because then I wouldn't even have the chance to speed tie with my own. So I'd make a useless Lando pivot and just... because he's just going to stay in. And I'd kill the Chople. And now I go to Terrakion. I'm like, alright, to prevent him from setting up with Latios, I'm going to Rock Polish. But what I should have done was Stone Edged first. Because he's going to reveal Thunder Wave. So great restraint there from him. But what I should have done was Stone Edge, because now I'm like, alright, I can sweep with Scarf Dragon Pulse if I just Stone Edge him into range, and now I have to hit it through Paralysis. But luckily he just does that. So I should have Stone Edge first and then Rock Polished, or just switch to Lando or something. Switch back and forth until I died so I could bring in Latios for free. But luckily I hit through the Paralysis. I don't give him a chance to set up on the Paralyzed rack, and I just go to my Scarf Latios, and Dragon Pulse will clean up. And those are our 16 games. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, those who were at the stream and those who were just watching it here. Thank you to Mcmeghan for playing. He still showed he's one of the best players of all time for a reason. And I had a lot of fun. And just for kicks, let's look at it one more time. So first of all, CB Azov is awesome. Yup, there are the sirens. I don't know if you can hear them, but as promised. Anyway, stuff happens, and Azov explodes, and now... yeah, alright. No better place to end it than there. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you again very soon next time.